That sucks.
It makes me want to sue.
You're getting litigious?
Huh?
Like litigation wise? Yeah. Can you hear me good?
You're going out, man.
All right, hold on.
Here.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now.
I'm just trying to get my phone to work with like a Bluetooth device, but it doesn't work half the time.
You can download pictures on Bluetooth.
No, yeah, I'm getting hacked on Bluetooth, I'm sure, because I hear weird noises. But now, I was going to say that it seems like people are like in a strange, like societal cognitive dissonance, like where they're being like peeled into two different layers. Like people are walking around in two totally different, like latent perspectives of reality. So they're they in this one bubble they've heard all this kind of information and then that's how they're proceeding. And then the other side, it's like a left-right reality split.
Right now, I think what's going on is the World Health Organization,
right,
which is the UN, is trying to take control, and they want Biden. They want Biden's president. What's her name? Vice president, and then they're going to do it. They're going to kill him, or he's going to have some kind of health problem, and then Carmilla, or whatever her name is going to go to president, and if the Democrats get the fucking House, Nancy Pelosi will be the vice president, and then that's the end. The world. That's the end of sovereignty, national sovereignty.
No, I've been concerned about this issue because it seems like to me, everyone, I mean, in this kind of like dichotomy between the partisans, you have like people who are really diehard Trump, and I think they're looking at it from their own perspective and their own kind of predisposition, and then over there you have the Biden people, and I'm concerned that. What if Biden does win? I mean, that would be disastrous, wouldn't it? I mean,
you listen to what he says. He can't complete ideas when he's talking. He can stick to his script, and then when his script is over, if he still has time or questions, he says stupid shit. He challenged the guy to do some push-ups. He called a woman a backwoods lazy bitch or something like that.
No, but what's up with the media totally like carefully like walking in lockstep with this whole like he doesn't have to come out from his basement. There are no conventions. Typically, like they have the what is that one dinner that the cardinal up there in New York, he usually holds the Al Smith dinner where the president, yeah, he'll sit down with each of them and they'll have the big dinner and the photo and they'll have speeches. Like it's like they're not doing like it's a very strange year. They're not doing the regular routine of events. So
they're not doing that either.
It doesn't seem like it. The guy doesn't leave his basement. I mean, Mitt Romney and Obama, everyone did it, but apparently this year I don't know. I'm going to keep an eye on it and see if I can find out. How is the media able to like be so carefully parsed so that it's?
Well, I'm hearing this, and I don't know if it's true or not. I'm getting some different sources, but they're not fully reputable. I'm hearing that LGBT wants to add a P to it for pedophile. Not that you can act on it, but you can still be a pedophile and talk to other pedophiles about young kids.
Because what's the purpose of that? Because they're trying to say that pedophiles are. I mean, I guess it's a defense. It's like a way for them to defend against the pedophile island situation. There's this huge exposure. I mean, Bill Gates was there involved. I mean, there's a lot of people that were involved with this.
Clinton was there. I think Clinton was there. They say he wasn't there, but then I heard he was there 40 times. So.
Well, he was dumb enough to go like a crackhead, like some kind of like pedophile crackhead, over and over again on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. I think some of them, like Tom Hanks, I think some of them went on their own planes and they're not on the flight logs and they're a little bit more under the radar. But old Bill just was flying back and forth on, And I think
they all know they're being recorded for blackmail.
I don't think so. I think that was
idiots.
No, I don't think so. I think that only the inside, like they get him kind of roped into it, and then they, you know what I mean? Like if you step out of line, that's why a lot of these senators and stuff like will just say, "Well, I'm going to step down now. I'm going to go home and be with my family. I'm done with politics," and they just leave because they would have them over the barrel with this stuff. You know, it was like the Illuminati. They would feed you your pick your poison, but then they would have you by the blackmail. So it seems like it was a blackmail system. The Epstein Island.
Yeah. See, I hate Trey Gowdy got out of the Senate.
Right. It made me think that somebody was coming through there because it was during the big FBI probe with Mueller, like heavyweight, like war was being waged behind the scenes, and maybe he had an affair. Maybe there's no telling That's another thing that no one talks about is where suddenly, like people were able to come up with Peter Strzok's like personal texts and emails, like just boom, like somebody just typed in the internet.
Hillary, she said I made a mistake and I'm sorry, I shouldn't. I done it and I didn't. She didn't just erase the email; she scrubbed it.
She professionally scrubbed it.
They do whatever magnetic thing they do to it where you can't retrieve anything.
Yeah, bleach
Wiener has her emails on his thing, on his laptop or whatever.
Oh yeah, but Wiener got busted bad. I mean, he got busted like sexting with a 14-year-old girl, and then when they got his laptop, from what I understand, when they got his laptop, that's when they saw all these disgusting images, and this is when this whole thing kind of got blown open. So it was a race to the top to control the power structure so that this wouldn't come out. That was what all the hysteria was about. So I want to know how many more people are implicated. Well, what would the motivation be for the FBI to fight so desperately and to create the Russiagate and then have the Mueller report and then they actually like impeached him? Like they were fighting like crazy against this man, So
let's talk about something. Let's talk about this. Over the past 3 years, we had the Mueller deal, then the Mueller report, then came Trump Russiagate thing.
Right.
Okay, and that went on for a while, and then I'm missing some stuff in here, but now we got COVID. It's not going to end.
Right.
Life as we knew it is gone. It's going to be one thing after another.
Well, these international power players have a lot of influence over. They're influencing the street gangs on the street rabble. They're getting paid. They're influencing the World Health Organization, which is it switches its policy. It's like warfare. It's like whatever they need it to do, it just changes shape and changes form, and all these different kind of like.
And Obama fired 25 or 30 generals and replaced them.
Right.
So if Trump says, hey, we have to make a move against the military-industrial complex. We need to go in there and we need to get what they got or find out what they got or audit them.
Or audit the Fed.
And nobody's going to do it because they're all loyal to the Democrats.
Right.
I mean, not the Democrats, the far left.
So that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering, like, how they'll even let Trump win at this point. It seems like the American people, have to vote with like a 70 or 80 million. Like, it has to be an overwhelming landslide victory that they can't cheat or steal. Like this, the whole mail-in ballot thing is obviously like an unvarnished attempt to try to steal the election because it's the same thing what happened with the FBI that we were talking about. If there's no justice and the FBI doesn't prosecute Hillary and only prosecutes Trump, I mean, when an FBI agent comes to talk to you, do you have to be worried if they're a Republican or a Democrat? I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. It's pretty serious.
And we got CIA operating in America, which is illegal.
Right. That happened when they were trying to put a box around President President-elect Trump, when he was, coming out. They had Brennan. Brennan was using powers of the CIA, and we don't even know the extent.
I don't know what to believe. And one part of me believes that Trump is kind of a dumbass, but he's not a politician, and he's a businessman, and he makes good business decisions. And right off the bat, he got rid of that Trans-Pacific trade deal that Obama illegally used executive privilege to get. So he got rid of that. He got rid of Obamacare pretty much.
The Iran deal, gone. Got rid of the Iran deal.
Is it a Hegelian dialectic?
Well,
it's from the antithesis.
Well, it is a dialectic. It is a dialectic because it's a conflict, but is it controlled? Is he playing a part in the dialectic, or is he his own man? Is he a loose cannon? That's really what we're going to find out, because if no one,
that's what I want, and I hope he doesn't let me down. I really do.
Well, we're in desperate shape.
I thought he was his own man. He's not collecting salary.
Mm-hmm.
He's not doing it for the money.
It happened before. There's been other presidents who just decided to stand firm on their principles, and they were in the way of the Illuminati bank system.
Everybody shut up about Hunter Biden all of a sudden.
Right.
He was making, I don't know, millions and millions and millions in Ukraine. And nobody even knows what he was doing. He was on the board. It was just nothing.
Right. It was just
his father and Biden got him in there.
Right.
I don't know, man. There's just
it's so corrupt.
I don't know what to believe.
You need to look. I've been seeing.
They want us to feel helpless. They want the American people to feel helpless and beg for martial law, because real martial law is not going to be. They're not going to
have beanbag guns or
put it out there. It's going to be begged for.
Right. Well, with the way I look at it, I mean, over the weekend, Chicago the downtown district got raided, and they just had this overwhelming, crazy crime wave, and the people are being instigated.
That's CIA and George Soros.
It's a psyop, man. It's a psychological operation against the people.
It is absolutely.
It's getting really crazy. I think,
and so is Portland.
Right.
Portland, did you see all those orange barricades? I mean, they had probably 100 orange barricades to barricade around the downtown so that they could mark off their territory.
Right.
Where the fuck did that come from?
Right.
In New York, they found piles of bricks, and apparently it was shown that the police were throwing bricks out of the trunks of their cars, but they never got a chance to use them.
Well, those were de Blasio's police.
I haven't really seen anything in Jacksonville.
Right.
They're changing the name of Lee High School, but I don't care.
I don't care either.
I went there, my kids went there, my dad went there, my grandmother went there.
I think there's something about the nature of our gun law here. We have a state law in Florida where it's a stand your ground law. So if you encroach upon a man's space and endanger him, and he shoots you, then they just cart your body away. And and that's not how it is in other places. You literally cannot defend yourself in these Democrat liberal cities, or if you do, you'll go to prison. And right, I mean that's kind of, I think that's how it is. You're not allowed to have a gun, and you're not allowed to defend yourself.
The answer? In an ideal world, what's the answer?
Well, we have to have states' rights and cities, separate counties. We have to have these different
states' rights. That's racist. That's racist.
No, I mean it's not racist. I mean it just depends on the state. I mean each of these different.
I don't think it's racist, but that's what the Civil War was about.
Well, I mean, I don't think it was about racism. It was about, I mean, we were pretty late on the
Civil War was about states' rights versus anti-federalists versus the federalists. And then they threw in release the slaves, so the slaves could help fight in the war. It wasn't people. I always learned in elementary school and whatever that the Civil War was over slavery and the release of slaves, and that is just not true.
Well, the background, we were still a new nation, and the first colonies didn't allow slavery. And then later on, the southern colonies, as the colonies are becoming more numerous and they're growing, we have these southern colonies, and we have the Louisiana Purchase, and we have the British bringing in the slaves and the pressing in the slave trade in the South. And really, France is going to get rid of the slave trade in 1807. And then the British aren't, like 1813, the British had abolished slavery. So by the 1850s, we were pretty late on the scene. So there was a big movement for abolition. There was a big movement, and it was among the Protestants and the Quakers and the Baptists. They wanted there to be this abolition of freedom. And what happened with the slaves is in the South, they were giving them the Bible and they were allowing them to have their own black churches. Even though they were slaves, they were concerned about their soul, so they gave them the Bible to read, and that's how you get this rich heritage of Southern Black Baptist churches, right? And so I think that there was a cry for freedom for these people, and it wasn't such an easy thing because they were in servitude, and if you just threw them out onto the land, they didn't have any skills or property or any kind of capital to build themselves up. So it was a process of giving them freedom in a way that would benefit them. So I think the Civil War was fought as, I think it was provoked. It was obviously provoked. There was a lot of powers in the background, European powers. It wasn't such a simple thing. They wanted the Southern slaves to revolt, and I think that's what they were trying to make that happen.
Well, I don't know.
But like I was
online, I got it. Tomorrow is the same subject.
Yeah, we've been going for a minute here.
Okay, I'm making that one. Okay, watch out when I say that. Okay.
Just be creative. Yeah, be creative.
But I mean, the states' rights were for slavery because they needed the slaves to work the field. Why couldn't white men work the field? Why couldn't they free the slaves and pay them to work the field?
Well, I think ultimately that's what happened. That's what happened. Yeah, ultimately they did free the slaves, and they did just start to pay them, and they were given some of their own property and land, and they were, so it was a transference of liberty to them, and it was a change in the citizenship too. So people, after the southern states were defeated, they were no longer citizens of their state. They were citizens of the federal government. So they're U.S. citizens now. So before, you would have been a Floridian, you would have been a state citizen of your state, and after the Civil War, you were just a federal U.S. citizen of the U.S. government. You see what I'm saying? So that was the change there.
I mean, now in America, the states' rights pretty much have it, I think. I mean, like the marijuana laws, the decriminalization of it on the federal level, and then they let the states decide what they want to do. Now, that's the way it should be. But that's the way it should be for everything.
Well,
it's so disheartening. The whole thing is.
Well, I think that the presidency at the time of Lincoln, I mean, when the southern states, this is when the presidency really changed, because the southern states left the Union. So they left the quorum, and they were no longer in the Senate, and they'd left. So they couldn't pass legislation, they couldn't go forward, they couldn't get a vote, they couldn't proceed. So in that state of lock with the northern states, without the rest of the states there, it fell to Abraham Lincoln to use executive power. And so that's when they first used executive orders, and he just signed orders and he made executive demands on the law that weren't really there before. He didn't, no president had previously used. So I don't think
that's true. I wonder why, and I love President Lincoln, don't get me wrong, but I wonder why Booth, which was a Mason, why he waited so long. Why waited till after it was all over to shoot the president?
Right. Well, I think that they really wanted to get him. And I mean, what it seems like to me is that he was bringing the Union back together. So he was going to return the southern states to the same footing that they had left the Union. And then when the emergency war powers had passed, and the emergency had passed, he would simply put the order of the power of the Congress back in place, and he would do away with executive orders, and they wouldn't have any more war powers. So when they killed him with these war powers still in place, and then they never shut it down. They continued from each president to the next president to the next president. They had these emergency war powers long after the Civil War was over.
Reconstruction, yeah.
Right. And they kept building on that, and they kept building on those executive orders, and that became an unlimited power of the presidency that it was never intended to have. So that's what's so dangerous about it. Like right now, we have Biden saying, "I'm going to get in there and take away the guns." How the hell is he going to do that? How does that happen? He thinks, and if he writes an executive order to take away the guns, who actually shows up to do that job. And you know what I mean? Like, who's going to actually be like, okay, I'll do it. I'll go take the guns of the American people. I mean, what Marshall, what FBI, what, you know, that's why the question of the power and the actual ideology behind these agencies, it really matters. Like, who are they? You know, who do they serve? You know, when they start to say, well, round up the American people and just shoot them in the back of the head and throw them in a hole, did these agencies just obey? Does Homeland Security just start to shoot the people in the head? Like, I don't. Where is the conscience? You know, the conscience. You know,
you're
so
right.
We have no reason from history to doubt it.
The Bible says this. It's either in Daniel or Revelations. I can't remember because I've been to so many seminars that were Daniel and Revelations. I believe it is in Revelations. Yeah, it says the beast that came out of the water, the ocean. That is America. Okay, that's the beast that came out of America. It says he looks like a lamb but speaks like a dragon.
Right.
And that's what it is. We're the greatest country in the world, blah blah blah. But the reality of it is we're not. The reality of it is that we're corrupt. Not we're, but the United States is corrupt. And I get into arguments all the time. He's like, "Why don't you just move to another country?" And I said, "Because I love my country. I just hate my government."
Right. Right.
You know.
There's a difference between your nation and your government. There's a total. You can love your nation and then replace your government and be doing a patriotic thing.
Kennedy was our last president.
Right.
Johnson hadn't. Johnson was behind it. He was our last president. And the rest of them have been chosen.
Well, I think we've had to look behind the veil with Epstein, but at the same time, there's been no arrests. So it's kind of terrifying to think that. Yeah.
I don't think. Well, there's been one arrest, the chick, but I don't know what's going to happen with that. I think they're going to. I think they're just going something else. Okay, here's another one. Okay, first of all, YouTube has completely gone with the New World Order. Okay, you used to could find all this 9/11 stuff about on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Now it's very rare.
Oh yeah.
You used to could find the meeting or the whatever it was where Rumsfeld came out in front of at the Pentagon and said, or the Congress and said, there's $3-point-something trillion unaccounted for in the Pentagon. That was on 9/10/2001.
Right.
And I tried to get my dad to listen to it. I finally found it. I got it on Fear and Images if you want it. But I finally got it, and he straight up says that on 9/10/2001, he says it, $3.2 trillion missing from the Pentagon, and it's special access projects. It's all going to military contractors. Just like Eisenhower said, beware of the military-industrial complex.
Right.
He knew what was going on. He knew that they were taking over the country. They're like their own nation.
Right.
They don't answer to America.
There's no accountability. There's no accountability to the electorate.
Clinton tried to get information on UFOs, and he couldn't do it. I forgot what his title was, but he tried to get information on it, and they said, "Sorry, you don't have a need to know." And he was the intelligence guy for the Pentagon.
Yeah, it's true.
In that military, I don't think that we have. I don't think that there's necessarily aliens. I think we have such high technology. I think it's the ships that people see are our ships that we made.
Right.
You know, there's something called torsion physics, and torsion physics uses counter-rotating electromagnetic fields, and they like to use mercury. okay, to do it, and they get anti-gravity when they do it. So you have just picture a barrel. You have a top of it going one way, the bottom of it going the other way, and the barrel will take off and float. Okay, that's a fact. Oh man,
what you got going on?
Let me call you back. They're like $20 worth of chocolate.
We were talking about how it seems like the technological advancements out there at Area 26, am I saying that right? No, Area 51, right? And that they're getting so advanced. I mean, I heard it said that we were 50, in the public, we're 50 years behind what they actually have. So as they kind of like secrete out,
And there's also a place that's about 10 miles away from Area 51 called S4. Did you watch the Bob Lazar documentary?
That sounds familiar. I'm trying to get to it. You know how it is. I mean, there's so much material out there that it's just. But then at the same time, like you were saying, like YouTube is slowly like disappearing information faster than I can remember that it's gone. So it's like only when I go to like look up a subject. So we need to be on it more, I guess, man. I don't know what we're gonna do.
Do you have Netflix?
Yeah, but it's so like it's so disgraceful.
On Netflix, I believe.
I'll check it.
If not, it's on YouTube.
Netflix is so like foaming at the mouth. It's so.
He discovered there was an element 115 that he talked about about 20 years ago, and it didn't exist, and now it exists. And that had something to do with the propulsion, not propulsion, but the
what? I heard that they had to use Pyrex, and then I'm trying to understand the science. Like I think that they're trying to pull off like the Blue Beam project. They're trying to pull off this. They're already in space.
Absolutely,
right? They're already in space.
They are.
Yeah, they're in space.
They really are.
Yeah, and
because you have.
So we have drones.
TSA to the Stars Academy, and they're all aliens are bad. And then you got Stephen Greer, who says aliens are peace-loving people, and it's going to come to a head eventually. That might be the next thing. And Warner Van Braun,
give us a background. Yeah, Warner Van Braun. Yeah.
He came over from the Nazis with Operation Paperclip, and one thing he invented the B-2 rocket, B-1 and B-2 rocket that bombarded England.
Well, they had the.
And then we got him, and he built.
They developed missile technology there in Germany, right?
The rockets that went to the moon, all of them, he was behind, and he killed the five slowest Jews a day
in the camps.
When he was in.
So they were using the slave labor.
It seems like slave labor is the way to go, man. It's free. All you gotta do is feed them, give them water. I mean, what the hell? Who does that?
I guess it's just a means to an end. I guess when you believe that you have a divine right, when you believe you have a divine right and that you're ruling over all the plebs, all the peasants are just there to the goyim are there just to be used, and they're just really taking up space. So I think that there's a certain inhumanity to it that's really monstrous in the side of history. But at the same time, if you look at it, World War II and even World War I were just really giving rise to military dictatorships, and then they were just putting everyone in the dungeon. So it wasn't really anything different from the Middle Ages. It was just an extension of the Inquisition. So they were going to round up Jews and have a big pogrom. And people are like, how could this happen? I mean, they weren't using the excuses of religion. It wasn't, and that's what Islam did. Islam had the excuse of having a religious,
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you watch Vice, the Islamic Connection?
Yeah, I've been on it. We're looking through that. I'm going to try to piece together an episode that discusses that. So I think that's kind of that's the mystery. That's the mystery no one knows.
Benefactor, his first wife, she was much older, but she was raised in the convent.
So we're talking about Muhammad here, 610, 620, when he's so this is the 7th century when he's going to get married. I think he was only 19 and she was 41, and she was a rich Roman Catholic, well educated, well connected to the Augustinian monks, right? That's where Muhammad gets a start.
It's just amazing how sometimes I think we're living in hell.
Well, I mean, I think that we're creating our own environment. So I think that what's remarkable to me is as people, as humans, we're given to this cultism. We're given over to just believe the most insane things. But I mean, do you blame men in the past who worship the sun? I mean, it's not their fault. They're etching like cave paintings, and they really have no idea what's going on, or they don't have any source of information or knowledge, and so they're trying to understand. But there's something inside of mankind that tries to derive an understanding of a God or of meaning, of purpose, of destiny. So we have a great intellectual faculty in us, but at the same time, we're like bastards of our origins because we have no idea where we came from. It's hard to believe that we could have slowly evolved from the ape and there's really no connection there. We're just, I don't know, it seems like we just got dropped into the fossil record somewhere in the Neolithic period, and between one of the ice ages, we're just here. And so, then you have to look, there is a huge history of ancient technology that's being, like, if you look across the world, there's a lot of questions and mysteries. There was definitely a antediluvian civilization in Atlantis. There was an ancient civilization that existed before our rise from, the pyramids. So there's this break in history there that's just really fascinating.
Have you heard of Göbekli Tepe? What happened, okay, is 12,800 years ago, and this is pretty much accepted now, a series of comets or asteroids hit the Earth. Because we were coming out of the Ice Age. They hit the Earth, and then we went back into an Ice Age. And it's called the Younger Dryas period. And Göbekli Tepe, 9,000 years ago, what they did, they had it like Stonehenge. They were pretty damn big. I mean, they were many, many tons of these like Stonehenge things, and all of a sudden they buried it. They went and they buried the whole area, and only 10% of it has been looked at by archaeologists.
Right.
And then we have Lebanon. What is it in Lebanon?
So we're talking about Baalbek. Yeah, the Trilithon. They have something absolutely mind blowing there. That it just.
We're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of tons.
Right. These are megaliths. These are megaliths that. Yeah.
The megaliths, and then they have all over the world. They have these buildings and mostly they're buildings. They're not pyramids, but they're built. They're built as it's the way that you have to look at it to see how they're built. They're not like masonry. They're these gigantic stones, and they're offset, and it's almost as if a lot of people think that there was a way of turning stone into almost like a liquid or putty,
and then pouring it into molds. Right. Like they were. That's interesting. I never heard it put that way. I mean, I've seen those seams that are so close that they're. But I mean, if you think about it, if they could have like molten lava and pour like molten granite into place, it's like
it's granite,
right?
And sandstone.
But it's unnatural.
Was about a mile away, and there's no way that they could have done it on rolling on cedars. The cedars would have just eaten up. So
no, I mean, I think that you're looking around. If you go down to Peru and you look up on the side of the mountain there, you're going to go up like, I don't know. I'm just paraphrasing. I mean, but you're going to go up a good 10, 15,000 feet or so, and there's going to be these huge megalithic stone structures up there. And the stones that the structures are made out of are not found within, 1,000 miles of those locations high up in the mountain. And so these are, 10,000, or what is it? I don't want to say they're on 10,000. It's enormous.
And academia says it was built by the Incas.
Right.
But you can go out to there's a lake up there, the city Cacarat, but right beside it, that was the Incas construction, and it's nothing like what is it? Where I want to go so bad. And
Machu Picchu. You're right.
Machu Picchu, yeah.
So, no, you're right. I mean, it seems as though, if we be really intellectually honest, that these tribes found these ruins after the fact, and then tried to make them their spots thousands of years later. So, I mean, it goes back to this idea of the biblical pre-civilization, the time, before Noah's flood, before the Great Deluge, when it was a different time. Maybe when man rode on top of dinosaurs, and then there was this humongous flood, and Noah and his family were able to get on the ark with the animals, and then survive this epic, and then they would carry on to the next period, and that's why we'd have this certain group of animals. And
how about this?
It's like a great reset. It's like
the animals. It's DNA of the animals.
Right. No, I mean that's a good point. I mean, on one level, people don't necessarily have to decide that they will accept that they all rode on a boat. I get that, but on some level, there's a great a bottleneck in genetics that shows that there was a die-off, and whether they rode on an ark or however they were saved, they were the survivors. And the old era and the old civilization was absolutely buried, and under a comet strike that would just cause the oceans to relocate everywhere in the world. And if you happen to be on a huge boat, perhaps you would survive it.
I mean, off the coast of Cuba, a half a mile down in the water, there's a whole city with pyramids, and how the hell did that happen?
So you're talking about a shift in the tectonic plates that would just submerge that city literally under the water like Atlantis. So that's what we're talking about. There was a worldwide civilization, and then it was smashed, and it was a reset of all humanity. So it seemed like we were coming out of a caveman era up into a Bronze Age and the slow development of mankind. But it seems as though that there was a pre-civilization that people can't account for in archaeology or history, and it's really not. It's really the forefront of modern science to ask the question of what happened before 10,000 years ago, right? I mean, before the Bible, before Egypt, or right before that, what happened?
Because Egypt busted out with the full technology to build the pyramids, and as time went on, the pyramids got crappy, and they were falling down, and they weren't the same.
Well, I mean, just to give the Bible credit and to give Jehovah credit in the Bible, he went down there to Egypt and destroyed that place. So I guess that's what happened to it. They couldn't keep it up anymore after he did all the plagues, and they did. I mean, ultimately that's where you're going to get the Passover tradition when Moses let my people go, right? And he led the people out of bondage, and that's what happened to Egypt. Egypt was never the same after that.
You know, it just blew me away when I realized it, is that during the last plague, they said all firstborn children will die, right? Unless you put the blood of the lamb on the lintel of the doors, right? And the blood of the lamb is what saves us, right? You know.
So they had to require that blood. And remember, as the story goes, the slaves are becoming too numerous, so they had to kill them back, like when you mow your lawn almost. And so they were going to do away with the kids. So when they took this baby lamb into the house, they named him and they had him in the house. And imagine a little baby lamb, though. I mean, a little yearling lamb just jumping around. And they had him in the house, and it was part of this Passover tradition at this time that they would name the lamb, keep him in the house all week, and at the end of the week, imagine the kids and everyone having dealt with a lamb in the house, they had to cut the lamb and kill it and use the blood of this innocent creature. So that's really, there's a symbolic, people will say, well, that's a bloody, blood religion, but really they were using the transference of this innocent creature to cover over the doorway of their home so that the angel of death would pass over. And it was just, it was a transaction. It was transactional. So whether it was transactional. So if you had the blood, you were covered, and if you didn't have the blood, you weren't. It was a blood covenant.
On the Holocaust, not the Holocaust of Jews, but on the Holocaust, they burned the lamb. They sacrificed a lamb.
Right.
And that's sacrifice. That's comparable to sacrifice of Jesus. But I have to say something here. I talked to at least 5 pastors, okay? And they all, here's what they say. The sons of God saw the daughters of man and thought of them beautiful, and took each one to put as many as they wanted as a wife, and their offspring were the Nephilim, and they were the giants, the heroes of old.
Right.
Now every pastor says the sons of God were the good sons of Seth.
Right.
Okay? That is bullshit. That is bullshit, okay? Because if you look in Job 1, it says God called a meeting of all the sons. There was a meeting called of the sons of God,
mm-hmm.
and they were the angels, and Lucifer was allowed to come up too. And they asked Lucifer, what have you been doing? And he said, I've been going up and down between here and the earth, and back and forth across it. And they refuse. Evangelists, Christians, Protestants refuse to believe that they were the angels mating with the women. Now they say that the angels can't mate with women. How do they know? The Holy Spirit mated with Mary and mated with Mary's sister.
Well, I wouldn't say mated, but overshadowed and creatively was able to make out of nothing, ex nihilo, the genetic material.
Yeah, genetics.
Right. It was after the flesh. I mean, we're all born after the flesh, but the Messiah was born after the Spirit, and so we saw that the Spirit has no problem covering the genetic puzzle, and so half of his genetic code, half of his genetic material in his body was spirit, and half of it was his mother. So you see what I'm saying? It was the formation of God with man. So yeah.
Yeah,
or with woman, I guess, because man wasn't. There was no man in the picture.
The angels mated with animals too, and they were the monsters. That's what they were called, the monsters.
I've heard that. So, that theory too. Though, ultimately, yeah.
But do you know why that women were supposed to cover their hair in church?
Right. Well,
because the angels found their hair so attractive that it says in the Bible, it says, they covered their head as not to tempt the angels.
Right. So something's happening there.
Then you have the Brule Society.
Right.
The women grew their hair, and the Nazis, the women grew their hair very, very long because they believed that it was like an antenna to the
Yeah, so the Vril side is kind of weird. They're like a 1930s UFO cult that thinks that they could connect with the fallen angels. So they had taken this idea of Nephilim, and they've taken this idea of connecting with the fallen angels who were hovering in the atmosphere above us, and they really were engaged in trying to practice that kind of.
It goes back. It goes back to Ephesians 6, really 10, 6, 10. It says that our struggle we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spirit and spiritual warfare. And another thing, it also said in the Bible. This is something I don't understand. It says in Genesis 6:4, it says that before the flood, the Nephilim were in the world before the flood and also after.
Well, we were talking about that apparently that if you go by just the Bible now, and remember that the Freemasons used the Bible in their rituals and the occult. You have to rely on the Bible to tell them what was happening with Egypt and Babylon. So, I mean, these scriptural historical writings are so profoundly central to our understanding of human history that we can't get around it. Because, I mean, some of the biblical cities that were supposed to be mythology or just religious make-believe have been found. Like, so you can have cities. So in other words, archaeologists will use the Bible to help them map the ancient world. So it's so accurate. So I mean, I think there needs to be an understanding that, I mean, if you go back to the initial period before the flood, what was the situation happening in Noah's time before the flood? So we know the flood was a reset. We know that all human civilization got reset back to zero during the flood.
Well, look at Matthew 24 says, "So as in the days of Noah, so as it will be in the coming of the Son of Man."
Right.
And I think they had high technology back then,
right?
Like we do now. I think they can screw around with genetics and
Ed, I mean,
make what they want.
Well, what about the Nazca lines where you can't see it unless you're way high up in the air? It looks like to me, and it looks like to everyone, that these are huge, miles-long etchings in the face of the earth. And you could have tried to have a slave army go and scratch and etch these huge pictures in the terrain, but it looks like to me like something in orbit might have been shooting like a focused beam into the stone and blasting like space graffiti onto the side of the earth. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, it looks like huge pictures of monkeys and insects. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Monkeys, spiders, birds.
I mean, this is occult knowledge. People don't know about the Nazca lines.
It's like a chalk. It's like a chalk type substance that makes them. That are made of, but I don't know. I mean, if you travel around and look at it, I mean, I haven't been there, but you can see that they were projected on the side of mountains. But there's also really big pictures projected right on the ground. So I mean, I don't know who had the ability to measure all those lines out and have the wherewithal to make these huge images. That's what I'm saying. There's something going along. The Nazca lines have to do with that ecliptic going around the Earth that lines up with Easter Island. I mean, they buried these huge megalithic stone heads on Easter Island. Who 33rd parallel, right?
Yeah, I mean, the parallel that runs through, the Great Circle equator line that runs through the Earth and connects up these ancient civilizations. I think the Ur of Chaldees. I think that the Giza pyramids, Easter Island, the Nazca lines, like Machu Picchu area. All of them are lined up on this. What they call an ancient equator. So what used to be the ancient equator, maybe. And that's how advanced the civilization was, that it was able to tie itself in around the whole faith. So that's where we're approaching now. We're coming into a period now of globalization where we can map out the face of the earth. And so that's what we were looking at then, right? I mean, isn't that...
And do you where the fallen angels landed?
Right. So there you go. There's some of the more
Mount Hermon.
Right. That's some more of the ancient technology.
33rd parallel.
Right. So they changed the meridian line, right? So it became the Greenwich line. Remember? So you're having the point where you're going to start counting your parallels, and they made it at Greenwich, England. And then before the French Revolution, it used to be the Rose line. It used to be the meridian line that went through France. And then if you count parallels backwards, you get to the 33rd degree, which is right there in Mount Hermon. And so you can see that when the angels came down on the mountain, like Mount Olympus, so the ancient paganism is going to be set at this time. They came down to interfere with the woman. So that's what's interesting. Like if you look at the beginning, Satan moved in really aggressively and really like subtly to try to kill the woman. So there was a problem right there. I don't think Satan expected that he was going to be outdone, or that.
Well, I mean, the Jews have Lilith, and Lilith couldn't bear children, I believe, and that's why she went around killing children and stuff. I don't know how true that is, but
I'm just saying, like if we're talking about,
have you listened to the Book of Enoch?
Right, definitely. I've checked it out. It's an apocryphal book, extra biblical book of the Bible that discusses the time when the angels came.
It was in the what was it? The discovery in 1940 something.
What, the Qumran? You said the Qumran caves, the scrolls,
not Qumran, but I can't think of it now.
Well, I mean, at the time the New Testament was being written, they discussed the Book of Enoch. So there was this prevailing history, and it's almost highly symbolic of Enoch and how he had to interact with these angels that came down from heaven, and these angels were going to give all this hidden knowledge, this gnosis, this secret knowledge to man, right? Is that the Book of Enoch?
Yeah, that's works. That's secret. That's knowledge. That's knowledge in order to get to heaven instead of faith.
Right. Well, it's interesting because the religion that we talk about, the pagan religion that was matriculating through history, that came from Assyria and from Phoenicia and Babylon and Egypt, and then it would grow into Persia, and then it would grow into Greece, and then grow into Rome. Right? This is a process of pagan civilization moving forward. But they had a religious system that was pagan. That's what we call it. But they also had, inside that pagan system was a secret knowledge. And if you look at the Greeks, their secret knowledge, their sacred knowledge was geometry. And geometry was the study of...
And the Greeks got it from
the Persians and the Babylonians.
Egyptians.
Right.
Gnosticism and the ancient and the mystery schools came out of Egypt.
But they were tied. They were tied with secret knowledge that was mystic, but it was also tied with this actual grounding mathematical knowledge. That's why the pyramids are shaped like big cubicles, they're big geometric shapes, because they had this worship of number. They had this worship of geometric magic and geometric.
Yeah, and the unit of measurement, the meter, which is actually, I think, a yard, but they change it to a meter. I don't know. Anyway, if you multiply the meter times like 22,000, you get the circumference of the earth.
Right.
I mean, there's so many things in the Egyptian. There's been contractors that build big buildings and stuff, and they said they could not build the pyramids. They said it would just it's like 0.2% off of perfect alignment to north and south.
Right. Yeah, it was created right on a certain line, a certain demarcation line, a certain circumference that goes around the Earth, and this is after the flood. So you have the old orbit, the old civilization line, where while the Egyptians were building the pyramids, the Easter Island heads were sticking up, and Machu Picchu had yet to be discovered, and all these ancient civilizations around the circumference of the world were situated high up on mountains, and the ancient pyramids in South America. So the Egyptians are building the old order. They're putting in place the new stones in the old system. Right? Isn't that what we're looking at?
Yeah, and here's something else to blow your mind. The Sphinx, John Schrock and Graham Hancock would popularize it. The Sphinx, the temple of the Sphinx, has thousands of years of water erosion, and that was go back to around 10,000 years ago.
So you're saying that I got you. So you're saying the Sphinx is,
and at that time, the Sphinx was changed. The Sphinx was a lion, and it faced Leo, the constellation of Leo. So the Sphinx itself is really old, and it's theorized that the pyramids were also really old, antediluvian.
That's interesting. I never have heard that. So you think that the Egyptians were just like the Aztecs and the Mayans were discovering an ancient civilization and deciding to make it their capital? That makes sense. It makes sense because you would have to find a way to connect up the ancient knowledge of the pre-deluge period, and how would the Egyptians know to find that exact place on the ancient equator and to have the technology to build those huge stones? So the question is, how do we get these enormous megalithic stones that if you go over into Russia, areas, we're starting to find more and more of this.
The Sphinx was dug out of the earth. I mean, it was chopped out of the earth right there. But the pyramids were, I think, like 40 miles away, if I'm not mistaken. The quarry.
So when they match up the stones, they're having to pull these huge stones 40 miles away. That's.
And you know how you take a metal tool, and what is it called? The thing that spins around, and you can cut with it, or you can smooth it out with it. What is it?
Like a router, or am I saying the right thing?
Not a router. It's round, and the wall has them, and it's got like a diamond blade on it.
Right. So
anyway, there's those marks on the pyramids. There's core drilling in areas where they core drilled right through. They were not made with. In fact, they should not be made with bronze. And at that time, it was in the Bronze Age.
Right. So you're talking about they didn't have the ability to create the raw iron that was hard enough to actually do this kind of work. Is what you're saying?
And there's a lot of people that think that there's a group of people that think that the Sphinx is whatever 10,000 years old. It's facing the constellation of Leo at dawn. Okay, that has to do with precession of equinoxes.
Right.
There's a theory that it goes back because it goes through a cycle of 26,000 years, and there's a theory that the Sphinx is around 32,000 years old. Right. And they can't date it because you can't carbon date rock. I mean, stone. I don't know, man. All I know is that we've been duped. We've been lied to. High school lies, elementary school lies, and that's why I don't anymore. I mean, I haven't in a while,
Right.
because I don't want any part of that mess. And I do stupid stuff. I do bad stuff. I do even evil stuff.
I'll call you right back. Hold on. No, we were talking about. Now, what's really interesting to me is that as I'm looking for the threads that connect the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing to people like Adam Schiff. I mean, there was kind of these reports that came out that there was 256 emails between Adam Schiff and Jeffrey Epstein, but then somehow like Google and Facebook and all the news outlets, they just kind of clean sweeped that news story out of existence. So and now whenever you look it up, it just has a whole bunch of Snopes and fact checkers, like 5 or 6 different layers of fact checkers at USA Today that basically say that's not true. Those are inaccurate, and so kind of like that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a really serious information warfare here.
Yeah, and look, the cameras, 2 cameras didn't work. 2 fucking guards were asleep, and his injuries to his neck was it was choking by hand or rope.
Right.
Not suicide. And he was killed.
He was killed.
And I believe he was killed by the Clintons.
Right, I think
they got
that
a trail of death.
Yeah, they have de Blasio was controlling Manhattan and controlling New York, right? And then Cuomo is the governor, so there's absolute total corruption to the core there. I mean, they from what I understand, they've just totally destroyed the economic situation there in New York City, and it's broken out into this. Each night, their murder rate went up 400%, and each night there's just total chaos as there's burning and looting just throughout the entire city. So somehow they've altered the actual balance of justice in the land so that people are really they're really animated and energized to run around and to destroy and burn shit, and it's incredible to me.
So can we videotape? Can we video podcast?
Yeah, I think at some point, I think we should probably try to get that going.
Because what we can do is get together and sit down and listen to what we got, then and then put it in categories, and then expand on certain categories, and do some research and expand on it. So
right. No, well, I was going to tell you. And like I said, I've been using people's quotes. So I've been using I'll listen to really interesting articles or really interesting audio clips, and I'll just get pieces of it and put it in the show. It's just simple as that.
Well, look up this. Just look it up. Look up who in Genesis 6 who are the sons of God.
Right. So
why would the good sons of Seth create giants?
Right, how could they? I mean, really.
They don't want it because it's too supernatural. It's, died at 33.
So you're talking about...
It's interesting. It's 1/3.
So you're talking about... So what's the scripture again? The dragon, his tail, how does it go?
The dragon swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven. But then another place it says that.
But what you're talking about the Luciferian.
God cast Satan out of or Lucifer out of heaven with lightning, basically.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at the Luciferian rebellion, apparently there was a war in the heavens and between the angels, and they were in rebellion against the Most High. And 1/3 of the angels, 1/3, sided with the rebellion and fell and were cast down with Lucifer. So that's what we're talking about. That kind of large scale epic battle.
And then 200 of them, the Watchers, which are also called the Grigori, they were sitting on the fence, and God pretty much, they were the Watchers. He pretty much cast them out as well.
So they're gonna. So you're talking about the Book of Enoch. So they're gonna be the ones that. So when they're cast out of heaven, they don't just go away. They come down to earth and immediately start to try to intercede in the civilization of mankind that's been cast down on earth for their sin against God.
The goat that they cast the sins on and they take out in the woods.
So you're talking about in the ritual where the people come in up to Passover and they shed the blood of the lamb to cover their sins for the year, and they take the high priest takes the sins of Europe and he indicts them. He puts them on the scapegoat, right?
Right, the scapegoat. You know what the scapegoat's name is?
No, what is it?
Azazel. And
Right.
Azazel is the one of the watchers who taught man the art of war, metallurgy, and taught man or women how to put makeup on, and it's just kind of weird. Come on.